My wife and I recently celebrated our 15th anniversary, and we thought we should do a cruise. You see, we had done a cruise for our honeymoon, and when I say a cruise, I mean three cruises on two ships over 7 weeks. Greece, Venice, New York, Boston, Iceland, Greenland, England, romantic strolls in foreign lands, high tea, dancing all night. But that was when we were younger and childless. And now we were saddled, blessed with two wonderful children, and no way to get rid of them. Believe me, I tried. You just can't palm them off the way you used to. Thought the grandparents would love a couple of weeks with them, but oh, our place is too small. We don't drive anymore. We're in intensive care. So it was going to be a family trip. Now, my wife, she works for a company that has a cruise line as part of its empire, and they do give a nice discount on their cruises. However, you got to be checking that thing every day. And once you see something, you got to jump on it and book it. Doesn't matter who wants to even go to Hoboken. You grab it and let the chips fall where they may. But this was not going to work for us. So we started to look through different cruise lines until we found the magic words, kids free. Now, since this was a special occasion, we thought we should get a room with a balcony. That'll be so nice, a little expensive, but it'll be worth it. However, we found out that the line we had chosen only allowed three guests or fewer in those staterooms. Then we thought, well, maybe we could get two staterooms, one for the adults with the balcony and one much further away for the children. And of course, if they wanted to have an adult in each room, my wife said I could stay with the children. She might let us come by and look in her room at her balcony whenever it was convenient for her. But this was going to be too expensive anyway. So we thought even though a balcony's nice, we can still make do with a large window. But nope, three guests or fewer. How about an obstructed view? So there's a lifeboat in the way. Uh-uh. A porthole? Nope. Seems the rooms for families of four were the inside cabins. No windows. Eternal darkness. I did find a nice one on the dungeon deck right next to the boiler room. The advantage was the kids would be allowed to shovel as much coal as they wanted, and the room was guaranteed to stay at a sweltering 120 degrees. But who really stays in the cabin? So we booked it. Well, where were we going? Alaska, the final frontier, unless you count space or under the sea, which we are neither rich nor crazy enough to do. We did a round trip from Vancouver. Flight up there was fine, uneventful. Going through customs was just answering a few questions on a computer screen and then waving to the immigration agent as they said, "Have a good stay." Remember when Canada liked us? We took a cab down to the docks, handed over our large luggage to the porters, and it was about 11:30 in the morning. We were told we weren't being able to get on the ship until about 2, but that was okay because my brother and sister-in-law live in Vancouver and they were coming to the ship to meet us. But then, lo and behold, one of the hospitality people say the ship is now available for boarding, which was great. We could throw our rolly luggage in the room and then see the city being unencumbered. It was the first time the kids are out of the country. Let's show them the town. So we got on the ship, tossed the luggage in the room, and then couldn't get off. Couldn't find how to get off the ship. I went up to the deck officer and asked, and she laughed maniacally and said, "Oh, sir, you can never leave." It was the Hotel California all over again. You see, what had happened was this. When we had landed at the airport, we went to immigration to get into Canada. When we got on the ship, we actually had to go through American immigration because they were just going straight to Alaska. In order for us to get off the ship and back into Vancouver, we had to go through Canadian immigration again, but those agents had left for the day. So we stood on deck, waving to my brother and his wife, talking to them on the phone as the children cried. Everyone was sad. And what do you do when you're sad? You go and eat. This was our first of many forays into the buffet. It was very crowded. I had to throw my daughter over the heads of several people so she could get us a table with 2.5 chairs. Now, she landed fine, but I had to deduct points for form. The kids fell in love with the buffet. So many food choices, desserts, drinks. I myself am partial to the pasta station. If I ever get trapped on a deserted island with a pasta station, I'll be fine. After lunch, we toured the ship, looked around, and then went back to our cabin. We opened the door and stared into the darkened void. Then I turned on the light and realized I'd been in larger porta potties. Now, there was one main bed, which was really two beds pushed together, and there was a sleeper sofa. You couldn't pull it out, there was no room. You basically just took the seat cushions off, and there was a little mattress. Now, for those of you who can count, this is only enough sleeping for three people. There's no dang way I was going to let a kid sleep on me. But then we discovered there was a hidden bunk in the ceiling. Wonderful, something else for the kids to fight over. Oh, I want to sleep in the mystery bed that might close up in the night. They ended up having to take turns, but neither was happy. Still, it didn't matter which one of them was up in that bed. Every night I was treated to a waterfall of blankets, pillows, stuffed toys, and sometimes a kid coming halfway down. Now, for some reason, the kids liked to stay in the small, dark room watching competition cooking shows on television, whereas me and my wife, we preferred going on deck, seeing the sights, enjoying the fresh air and sunshine. One of the nice things about being on deck is when you walked on one side, it was warm, it was smooth, it was calm. But once you got around the other side of the deck, gale force winds blew you straight all the way down. In fact, twice my wife was blown straight into the spa onto a massage table. I can't explain it. My son did disappear for a few days when he fell in with a roving gang of preteen boys. They terrorized the pickleball court, would stick their toes daringly over the entrance to the casino. We finally caught up with him at the pool bar, where he was demanding more cherries in his Shirley Temple. Now, there were plenty of animals and wildlife to be seen. Otters everywhere. There's an otter. There's one. There's an otter one. Everywhere you look, otters. Whales. Lots of whales. Always on the other side of the ship than we were on, though, for some reason. We did see mountain goats. At least we think we saw mountain goats. They were really just white dots on the side of a cliff, but the guides swore they were mountain goats. Oh, yeah, the American bald eagle. Saw one swoop down, grab a man off the deck, and fly away with him. He did scream for help, but eagles are protected, so all we could do was take out our phones and film him as he disappeared into the forest. We um, we got to Juneau and we saw some upside down trees. We did some kayaking in Ketchikan. We saw the last Radio Shack in America in the old gold rush town of Skagway. We also stopped at Glacier Bay, where sadly many of the glaciers have receded or melted, but we did get to see one calving breaking off into the ocean. The best part about that was seeing all these kayakers who were trying to get really close to get a good look at the glacier, and then watching them scramble away as tons of ice came down on top of them. Hilarity all around. Sadly, the cruise, though, came to an end. But my wife was able to lock herself up in the penthouse suite. They weren't getting rid of her without a fight. Turns out they were ready for a fight, and she was tossed off with the rest of the riffraff, meaning me and the kids. We had to go through Canadian customs, and that immigration agent had the biggest eyes you ever saw, like they could stare into your very soul, and he kept focusing on my daughter's backpack, like you could tell the cub inside wasn't a stuffed toy. And the fact that it was growling didn't help matter. Now, to be fair to my daughter, the bear was very cute, and his mother was looking the other way. But we had to hand it over to the agent, and he just tossed it in the bin with the other contraband. Now, just so no one gets upset, my brother and sister-in-law were able to meet us after we got off the boat. And we had a lovely time. But then we flew back home, uneventful flight, found ourselves standing in our kitchen, returned to our dull workhouse lives. Staring at the calendar every day, we say to ourselves, only 15 more years before we go again. And that was our anniversary.